Okay, so again, welcome. And I will open with a poem by Wasanshire, just because it feels so apt to me. When I was thinking about tonight, the first poem that came to mind was Conversations About Home, considering everything happening in the world. So, Conversations About Home at the Deportation Center. Well, I think home spat me out, the blackouts and curfews like tongue against loose tooth. God, do you know how difficult it is to talk about the day your own city dragged you by the hair, past the old prison, past the school gates, past the burning torsos erected on poles like flags? When I meet others like me, I recognize the longing, the missing, the memory of ash on their faces. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. I've been carrying the old anthem in my mouth for so long that there's no space for another song, another tongue, or another language. I know a shame that shrouds totally engulfs. I tore up and ate my own passport in an airport hotel. I'm bloated with language I can't afford to forget. They ask me, how did you get here? Can't you see it on my body? The Libyan desert red with immigrant bodies, the Gulf of Aden bloated, the city of Rome with no jacket. I hope the journey meant more than miles because all of my children are in the water. I thought the sea was safer than the land. I want to make love, but my hair smells of war and running and running. I want to lay down, but these countries are like uncles who touch you when you are young and asleep. Look at all these borders foaming at the mouth with bodies broken and desperate. I am the color of hot sun on the face of my mother's remains were never buried. I spent days and nights in the stomach of the truck. I do not come out the same. Sometimes it feels like someone else is wearing my body. I know a few things to be true. I do not know where I'm going, where I have come from is disappearing. I'm unwelcome and my beauty is not beauty here. My body is burning with the shame of not belonging. My body is longing. I am the sin of memory and the absence of memory. I watch the news and my mouth becomes a sink full of blood. The lines, the forms, the people at the desks, the ceiling cards, the immigrant officer, the looks on the street, the cold settling deep into my bones, the English classes at night, the distance I am from home. But alhamdulillah, all this is better than the scent of a woman completely on fire, or a truckload of men who look like my father, pulling out my teeth and nails, or 14 men between my legs, or a gun, or a promise, or a lie, or his name, or his manhood in my mouth. I hear them say, go home. I hear them say, fucking immigrants, fucking refugees. Are they really this ignorant? Do they not know that stability is like a lover with a sweet mouth upon your body 1 second? The next, you are a tremor lying on the floor, covered in rubble and old currency, waiting for its return. All I can say is, I was once like you, the apathy, the pity, the ungrateful placement, and now my home is the mouth of a shark. Now my home is the barrel of a gun. I'll see you on the other side. And with that, Phillippa, it's so lovely to have you. If you don't know Phillippa, you should have read your emails. So, Phillippa, I hand over to you. Phillippa, you are frozen. I'm not entirely sure what's happened. You're breaking up. I'm not.
It's one
You're still
It's
breaking up. It's still not clear. Okay, so while Philippa tries to fix her audio and Wi-Fi connection, Philippa is a lecturer at Wits University for creative writing. She's worked in television as a television screenwriter for 10 years and comes from a theater background. She studied at the Lecoq School of Theater in Paris. Her one-woman show, Original Skin, toured nationally to Germany. She wrote Taller Than Buildings in 2006, The Everyday Wife in 2010, winner of the 2011 South African Literary Prize, and Ice Cream in My Headache. Oh, wait, sorry, I was just letting her in. I'm doing a lot of things all at once. um, so she's done a lot. My favorite collection is Ice Cream Headache in My Bone, which was published in 2017. She was the 2014 Commonwealth Poet. There is a lot. I could go on. The biography is brilliant. Um, is Philippa with us? No, not yet. Not yet. Okay, so I think she's probably just trying to reconnect. And maybe meanwhile, I'll read a different poem as we wait for her from Louise Gluck, one of my favorite poets. I'll read a poem from that as we wait for Philippa. And it's called Echoes. 1. Once I could imagine my soul, I could imagine my death. When I imagined my death, my soul died. This I remember clearly. My body persisted, not thrived, but persisted. Why, I do not know. 2. When I was still very young, my parents moved to a small valley surrounded by mountains in what was called the Lake Country. From our kitchen garden, you could see the mountains, snow-covered even in summer. I remember peace of a kind I never knew. Somewhat later, I took it upon myself to become an artist, to give voice to these impressions. 3. The rest I have told you already. A few years of fluency, and then the long silence, like the silence in the valley, before the mountains sent back your own voice changed to the voice of nature. This silence is my companion now. I ask, of what did my soul die? And the silence answers, if your soul died, whose life are you living? And when did you become that person? Okay, so Philippa has not connected yet. It could be load shedding. I sincerely hope it's not. Because load shedding sucks and takes away such lovely things, disturbing our poetry night. How dare. Okay, I'm looking at other poems that I could share as we wait. I'll go back to Wasan Shire and I will read. Okay, Philippa is back, so I don't have to read that poem. I'll read it in the open mic. Okay, she's still joining. Philippa, are you back? Are you connected? Are you with us?
Hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes,
No, it's
we
not
can
Philippa.
hear you. Wonderful.
No, it's not Philippa. Sorry, it's only Cindy. Uh, I'm just letting everybody in the room know that I just gave Philippa a call. Oh, and she
She's
said that she was here. Oh, she's here.
here.
thank you so much, Cindy. So yeah, no, it has been, the world is really in a very, very awful state at the moment. And so it was with great trepidation that I prepared this set because I'm just full of rage and I just feel like poetry can absorb a lot of things. So I'm just gonna go for it. I hope you don't mind. I see So I'll just go for this new poem. Family. For the longest time, I felt I had no blood. Family was made of paper and liable to burst into flame if I said anything wrong. Then the man acting as my father told me I was half Aborigine, so I learned the didgeridoo, jumped into the dream time, learned words like genocide, that the world did not see as a Holocaust, like the Herero and the Tutsi. In that dream, I was a green ant, brave and free, and the last one left to speak my language. So in the thrall of what has been happening and opening to the terrible things that are happening to people in Gaza, I thought about how loss is also an opportunity to celebrate and to show love and care for those who have loved and cared for you. So this is a poem for my father, which I wrote many years ago. It's called Night Fishing with Daddy. We turn off the national road, bumping through the veldt, till we arrive at the great wet eye of the dam. The sun is low, but it's still light. We unpack the truck. I've brought a friend along. She's 13 to my aspirant 12. While Daddy puts up the tent, we play shyly around the water's edge. She's Italian, not used to camping or the outdoors. Her brand new tackies sparkle against the wild grass. Two boys swim across the dam to talk to us. They ask us if we're models. My eyes are full of my friend. She's so sophisticated, the way she laughs at boys. Daddy prepares the rods and the bait. I'm self-conscious. I don't want her to see how expertly I can hook a worm. Our favorite fish are sweet-fleshed kerper and carp. We use worms for carp. Kerper prefer lumps of or curry. Grasp the rods and follow Daddy's movements. Listen to the long song of the line as it flies over the water. Then the plop as the bait-laden hooks hit the water, and we girls get song, plop, plop. Daddy lines. And I still love my friend. She's come to life.
Hello.
Sorry about that. She sits passively as the shadows come to lie around her like old pets. I'm mortified. She must be hating this. Teenagers should not be forced to go fishing. Worm-like, I resent struggling against the hook. Finally, I resign myself, surrender to night, wait to see what the water will return to us. So it's coming up for November, so it's the month to celebrate men. So that was for my daddy, who is not my father. but you'll hear more about that. People are being eliminated by other people. For Heba Zakut, a painter of Palestine, a Palestine of colors and gently smiling women, a Palestine surrounded by white doves, explosions tearing up its night, telling its children, you will be orphans. It is your own fault for being born. Great Uncle Grief. How to tell a child that their forebear was magnificent also tells us how to clean a grave. First of all, the effort, and second, the care. The expedition calls a frugal concern for the living, a sandwich each, a fruit, a little water, the slow and careful weeding. Hunger, a life force as the sun raises the back of the neck, the task becomes uncomfortable. Memory dances outside the pictures we draw for the child who watches us retreat from the noise of news, the numbing wind of broadcast. Close the doors and light a candle and welcome Great Uncle Grief. So I guess it's these big names and these big news stories that sometimes also remind us of ourselves. So this poem, I wrote this poem after the murder of George Floyd, and it has an epigraph which is from Susan Sontag, but also from Walt Whitman. Bodies like mine. Treat all moments as of equal consequence. The life of the one asphyxiated by the knee of the one kneeling, not in prayer, but in disregard, deaf to the pleading of his double, oh, the humanity. To look again at the open coffin at the community funeral. At 6, I was curious. At 16, sickened. At 40, devastated. I heard him speak, and George Floyd said, I didn't want to die. And neither would I, for at 16 I first raised my fist and cried revolution. My mother, smelling of 4711, said, you'll never be like them. Everything you think you are is me, European. I watched her floss, her fuchsia toes in naked pink, tiled bark bathroom matching. I turned to peer into the mirror, looking for myself, or what was left. There were things about me she could never know. Outside in the dark, I knew bodies like mine were moving. Now, we who are still breathing, hearts beating, hands, mouths, chorusing outrage and something mild and mundane as calling for your mother. George Floyd says, weep for me now, for I loved that body so. Oh, George, no more memories, let me share one of mine. At 7, I crawled through the stormwater drain, the bright afternoon circled by its end, and a wire sliced my back open. Like an animal, I hid it for days. Holding tight to the pain, it was mine after all, only mine. A week later, she gasped and asked why I hadn't said, it's too late to get it stitched now, you'll have a scar. Satisfied, I skipped to bed. Just because the world knows your name doesn't mean thousands more are not suffocated by calloused knees, cherish their scars, and remain. So how is it, are you feeling? Is it still okay? Are we feeling the poetry?
We are feeling something.
Good, good. So last year I was working on my PhD project, which is a long poem, and I read an excerpt of it, and I've finished it now. So I'll read another section from it. This is, oh, that's a nice, thank you, Zena. That's a beautiful thing to say. So in this poem, which is a long narrative poem set in the future, the women declare war on the men and retreat to a cave which is called Mahaha. Mahaha in Sesotho means cave. So they're in this cave, all of these women who've run away from men, they've run away from civilization. And I want to read this part of it because actually I read another poet's poem in here. And I asked for her permission. Her name is Katie Bickham, and the poem is called The Blades, and it becomes the anthem of these women. So this is the moment where this happens. And so the chief characters is a woman called Meredith, who hasn't bathed for about 5 or 6 years, and Leratu. So Meredith stood at the mouth of Mahaha, watching yet another morning rise and ripen, her heart becoming daily more discouraged. The shrine to the victim, so carefully maintained, had been moved aside. As always, the dead must make way for the living. Quite rapidly, the women, including some of the most potent distillers and beer brewers in the land, had made themselves at home, kept Leratu supplied with medicine. She soaked the ache in 7 kinds of brandy and was unable to greet the dawn as Meredith had imagined. Her vision of phalanxes of Amazons daily growing in size and number was fading. What had she said? Sisters, come and join the fight, plus some threats of actual violence. Meredith's precious Mahaha was like a cross between Matric Rage and Lord of the Flies. On the 7th day, Meredith cracked her knuckles. Your army is looking for a leader. Look. The belly of the cave was a sweltering mass of feverish, unkempt women. There were skirmishes here and there. My head is looking for a leader, Meredith, a leader of grandpas. What do you think I should do? Disgusted, Meredith hissed, so your fine words were only fine words. Listen, at least I know how to take a bath. Meredith slapped Leratu in the face. Shocked out of her babalas, Leratu slapped back. Before they knew it, they were fighting like cats, and the women gathered round to cheer. Leratu got hold of Meredith's hair and pulled her to the ground. Meredith kicked Leratu in her queasy gut, and Leratu retreated, doubled over, while Meredith closed in. Suddenly, a poet, wild-haired and with a voice like rain, stood on a tall rock and called out, "The Blades!" The women called her name, Katie Bickham, and all activity stopped as the poem began. In the new world, as the goddess dictated, each time a man touched a woman against her will, each time he exposed himself, each time he whistled, dropped something in her drink, photographed her in secret, as each girl and woman settled into silence to hear how they became, she sprouted a wing from her spine, not feathered like birds or angels, not cellular, translucent, veined like dragonflies, but a wing like a blade, like a sword hammered flat, thin as paper, one wing per wrong. At first, the women lamented. All their dresses needed altering, their blankets shredded, their own hair sliced off, like a whisper if it grew down their backs. And those misused by fathers, bosses, drunken strangers, evening after evening were blade-ridden, their statures curved downward like sorrow under such weight. But this was not the old world of red letters or mouthfuls of unspoken names, not the old world of women folded around their secrets like envelopes, of stark rooms where men asked what they'd done to deserve this. And the goddess whispered to the women in their dreams, and they awakened, startled, and knew the truth. They pinned up their hair, walked out into the morning, their blades glittering in the sun, sistering them to each other. They searched for the woman with the most blades, found her unable to stand, left for dead, nearly crushed beneath the blade's weight. They called her queen. They lifted her with hands gentle as questions, flung her into the air, saw her snap straight, beat the wings at last, and they followed her, a swarm of them, terrible and thrumming, to put the blades to use. The poem sang itself out and reverberated against the walls of rock and back over their heads. The women cheered, clapped, and howled. She was carried around Mahaha twice. The second time, a victory yell, and Meredith, shining and panting in shock at the cold, climbed out of the pool, 2 shades lighter and shy as a girl. So that was an extract from Riding Out the Water with a few jokes in it. But I hope it came across. And I would just thank you, Raphael. Can't wait to read my PhD. Ugh, I'm terrified. So this poem is for Diana Ferris. It's a birthday poem for her. It's called Devotion. Child, when I tell you that the voices that speak through you are morning light in the bare branches of a winter morning, illuminating without warming, clarifying without comforting, I know that light is a comfort. And clarity is a sheltering knowledge, and voices are not madness. Time, as the breath of earth, tells her people what they need to know, through people such as you, a knowledge that will heal them, that will heal you too. You do not come from nowhere. Others told stories before you. Diana Ferris, dancing in the footsteps of her revered ancestor, lives inside me now. A week after her reading, I turned into the philosophy corridor and saw a bespectacled student expertly performing an Indlamu kick before entering the examination hall. The girl in the polished institution of silence executes sans drums, community, or reason, a salute to the unseen moon with the sole of her foot, a reckoning stamp to the receiving earth. Devotion is your body in rhythm with ancestral gatherings, calling your mind home to perfect beauty. Do not be afraid of your voices. Learn their names, sing their songs, be the memory of meaning that beats alongside each receiving heart. So I used to live in a house with 2 young men. Sorry, Jean, it is not actually published yet, but it will be, and as soon as it is, I will make it available. This poem is for these 2 young men that I lived with at one point. It's called Brass. These two young men who drown in gatherings love to be at home where they spend most of the time talking to people who are not there, and it's completely normal. Their long legs lope across the wooden floors of the house as they tell the slim lozenges they hold in their hands all kinds of lies, and something returns that makes them throw back their heads in trumpets of mirth, or sit hunched over a voice, canoodling a velvet sax, linking them to a body that is not theirs, but echoes their questions in conversation. When they laugh, the air arches like a cat oozing pleasure. Outside the night, inside the light, the laughters of young men in an old house, sunk in its foundations, cracked and pure, simmering its sullen secrets, and a mother delights at the gleam of brass. So I think if it's okay with you, I would end this set with a poem which I wrote for my father, my biological father, in the spirit of celebrating men, and also in celebrating family, in celebrating connection, celebrating humanity. For me, identity is something that we create. We choose who we are related to. And so this poem is called Heritage, and it came out of a time where I was in Accra, and I read an excerpt from my play, Original Skin, and the excerpt said this: the first time I saw my father, it was like the whole continent was walking towards me. It was like his skin unzipped, opened up to let me in, and for the first time, I was able to see my black skin as a badge of courage. And after the reading, somebody in the audience said, "Can you tell me what that actually means?" So this poem is attempting to do that. It's called Heritage. First, you never denied me, even after I had summoned you out of the blue yonder, father of three, turned to father a stranger. At the small provincial airport, your eyes found my shy, eager face, collected me with husband and son, swept us in, made place at the table, gave us clothes, fed the baby his first solid food, took him from my breast and told him, "That is good, but there is also turkey." You gentled my memories out like hand-washing underwear, a necessary task without shame. You faced the people who had raised me, listened to the legend of my rage, gave thanks, especially to me, for returning, closed the broken fence. From you, I learned being in black skin, whole, unlike those dispossessed, running from torment of land, value, meaning. I am not white, not colored, not Cape Malay, not Greek, not other colored, not a throwback, not your father slept with a maid, not an experiment, not an Aboriginal doll. Their children stolen, abandoned, not quite. She never said if your father had been white. Now you, my child, get over it already. You are different. Thank you.
Can we please unmute and give Phillippa a big round of applause?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely, so lovely.
That was amazing. If I can bother you, could you please reread Returning from My Father? Just because there were tech issues at that point, and we didn't really
Oh,
get the first one.
the first one for my dad.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. This one, which was I just like to say to to Raphael. I see Raphael Dabdin is in the house, and this is a high bun, and a high bun is a form which is characterized by the haiku at the end, which I think is very weak. But anyway, night fishing with Daddy. We turn off the national road, bumping through the veldt till we arrive at the great wet eye of the dam. The sun is low, but it's still light. We unpack the truck. I brought a friend along. She's 13 to my aspirant 12. While Daddy puts up the tent, we play shyly around the water's edge. She's Italian, not used to camping or the outdoors. Her brand new tackies sparkle against the wild grass. Two boys swim across the dam to talk to us. They ask us if we're models. My eyes are full of my friend. She's so sophisticated, the way she laughs at boys. Daddy prepares the rods and the bait. I'm self-conscious. I don't want her to see how expertly I can hook a worm. Our favorite fish are sweet-fleshed kerper and carp. We use worms for carp. Kerper prefer lumps of bread or millipap flavored with custard powder or curry. We grasp the rods and follow Daddy's movement and cast. Listen to the long song of the line as it flies over the water, then the plop as the bait-laden hooks hit the water, and we girls giggling 3 times. Song, plop, giggle. Song, plop, giggle. Song, plop, giggle. Daddy lights the lantern. Boredom nibbles at our minds. A wild bird bustles noisily through the reeds, finding its nest. I steal a look at my friend. She sits passively as the shadows come to lie around her like old pets. I'm mortified. She must be hating this. Teenagers should not be forced to go fishing. Worm-like, I resent struggling against the hook. Finally, I resign myself. Surrender tonight. Wait to see what the water will return to us.
Thank you so much. This reading has made me think so much about so many different things.
Thank you.
Related and might be not related. But before I ask my questions that are relevant and irrelevant, I'd like to open it up to the floor. Are there any questions in the room? Any comments in the room? This is your time. Any comments or questions for Phillippa? Ed, please go ahead.
Thanks, Nandra. Hey, Phillippa. Lovely
Hi.
to hear all of those poems in conversation with each other. I feel like the last line of the poem you just read relates to, I guess it's more of an observation than anything else, but what the water will return to us. And I feel with your poems, it's as if they return my humanity, our humanity, because they're generous, and yeah, it's like there's a reframing of conversations around identity, sisterhood, fathers, teenagers. So yeah, thank you so much.
That's very high praise coming from you, Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well,
so much, Ed. Thank you, Ed. Sorry for cutting you off.
Good.
There's another question, Jacques. Please go ahead.
Philippa, that was just an extraordinary reading. I just say I lost track a long time ago with of whether I'm visible or not.
You
You
are
are visible.
I am visible. Okay. Um, oh, that was an astonishing reading, and um I was particularly moved tonight by that sort of dystopian, utopian vision of the women of Mahaha. And I wondered how you came to write it, and if you can say more about the structure that it's part of, and how
Okay.
where we can read it, because there's something, it's very loose, as you say. It's kind of there. It's as if there are jokes in it. It's very light and very substantial at the same time. I I don't know that I've ever read anything like it. Can you just say something more about it before I start babbling?
Okay. Thank you. What a beautiful question. That's really so lovely, because this idea came to me a few years ago, actually. I it was just, I just finished my MA, and I just sat down and I wrote a story. And the story was just a mess. It was in 7 different languages. It was just whatever. It was just a smorgasbord. It was a potjie course. It was a mess. And I entered it into a competition. Obviously, it didn't come anywhere, but I just became kind of obsessed with this idea of like, what happens? What would happen if women just decided that they were not going to accept being victims, and they were to actually like consolidate themselves into this force and fight back, and frighten men, like so that they never hurt a woman again. And then I thought, so then I was compelled to do a PhD because I got this job, and I resentfully set about doing this thing. Um, and as I was doing that, I just started falling in love with the process, um, and 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 as you know, as it happens, as I'm sure you all know, you're all poets, and I'm sure that serendipity is just your secret weapon, and poems come to you. They suggest themselves to you. Lines come to you. So like, I don't know how much of a poet I really am, but I just like the sound of things, and then I just put everything together, and um so it grew from that. And so I was able to put this together as a proposal, and it was accepted. And then I had 3 years to write a long poem, and a long narrative poem, an epic poem. And so obviously with a PhD, there's also a critical component, which is a like a discursive essay. And as it happened, I had been fortunately commissioned um, to to compile the collected works of Kiaripeti Khosetsile by the African Poetry Book Fund. And I was completely intimidated by that. So I asked a scholar called Uhuru Palafala to join me in this endeavor. And so as we were researching, um, just immersing ourselves in Kiaripeti Khosetsile's oeuvre, I sort of started to pick up some of his strategies, his compositional strategies. And a lot of the time there were repetitions. There were scraps of songs, there were scraps of other poets' poems, there were lines from other poets. that these kinds of things that he all included in his, as if he was a musician, and using language as an instrument to create something new, but with things that were familiar to him, and also in some way also discovering stuff as he went along, because as we all know, I'm sure by now, as José used to say, a poem is a discovery. You really never know what you're going to say until you've said it. So that has been my adventure for the last 3 years. And it's going to be examined next month, and then after that, I don't know. Well, I'm glad to know that you're interested, and Jacques, I would be very, very honored if you were to read it.
Well, and I mean, what you know, I mean, I'm curious what it felt like also to include Katie's poem in there, because that's a fascinating procedure that you, okay, right in the middle, that this turning point, and you include somebody else's work. I mean, that, yeah, I mean, I you know, I get it, but I was very moved by that. You could easily
Well,
have
it was.
and
It felt really transgressive, obviously, we all know about plagiarism. So I sent her an email. I found out where she was, and I had this idea that this is something that I wanted to do. And I wrote to her, and she said, "This is the weirdest request I've ever heard." But she said the thing about this poem is that she's had some really, and then she in the letter, which I reproduce in my thesis, um, she said that somebody had asked her, who was dying of cancer, had asked her if the poem could be read at her memorial service, because she knew the rapist was going to be sitting there and she wanted to get him from the grave. So that was the one person who asked for permission, and she gladly gave it. Um, Another person had written to her and asked her if she could give the poem to undergrad students, and she said no, absolutely. And so for me, when I said I want to include it in a larger poem, she said no, that sounds fun. And I sent her this section, and she thought, this is amazing, this is great. And so I said, well, actually, you have a part in the movie, because
yeah.
they'll need, and she's blonde, so I sort of had this idea of her, if she just let her hair turn into dreadlocks, and be like this wild woman amongst all these women.
Ah, amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. Raphael, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nondwe. Thank you, Phillippa. And I also want to know more about this narrative poem and the PhD, because it's extremely fascinating what I heard today. And so Jack was mentioning, the rhythm, and obviously there's echoes of Cosizile here. And I heard it as a jazz poem. You remember, Cosizile said, I write poems as if they were just solos. So obviously that's that influence there, as you have confirmed. And I can see echoes of maybe Pincola Estes, women who run with the wolves. Obviously, I'm thinking of Plato when you mentioned the cave. I want to know more about what are the other influences. What influence? What brought you to this to the composition of this narrative long poem? Is it some epic poem that also has influenced you in the writing of this poem/PhD? What were the influences that carried you through the writing of it?
Well, there's this poet in New Zealand called Bill Manhire, and who wrote a poem called Hotel Emergencies, which is a found poem. So it's basically, it was a notice about, you know, what to do in case of fire in a hotel, and he turned it into a poem, and it's an anti-war poem. But so like I think what happened is that as I began to dramatize this whole idea of, so the inciting incident of the poem is a brutal rape of this young woman, of this young girl. She's very young. She's 14 years old, and she's gang raped. And this is the inciting incident. And so, in a sense, I just wanted to dramatize that event. And so, for that, I just drew on everything that was going to create a sense of war and chaos and disorder. Because I felt that this is what it is like. This is what happens to women who are in that situation, who are victimized, who are terrorized, and that I wanted the whole world to reflect that. And so, but also the world that I'd already created, that I created, is set in the future. It's in about 15 years' time that it takes place. So there are drones everywhere. There's also a very different kind of politic. It's become very, very right wing. It's almost like The Handmaid's Tale. You know, it's got that kind of vibe as well, but with more of a traditionalist, Africanist sort of vibe, you know, because there's a group of there's two groupings, Bomama and Bobaba, who sort of are the kind of spiritual leaders, or the cultural leaders of the youth, and they're very, very keen on a very hard binary between boys and girls, just destroying everything that the Constitution created. So like it just was about the violence of gender. You know, I think that was the main sort of influence and the main sort of idea. And it's sort of, I'm a bit worried about it, to tell you the truth. It's very hard. You're this person who writes short narrative poems, short little poems, you know, the maximum like 60 lines. This is about 17,000 words. So it's an 80-page poem. And so, like, I think I sort of started to lose a bit of impetus towards the end. But I don't know. We'll see what they say.
Let us see. But as I say, I truly look forward to reading it. It was very fascinating.
I'm actually less terrified than I have been in the past about other people reading it. Like, I would always be so intimidated by, oh my gosh, Sindiswa Busuku and Rafael Dobdon and Jacques is going to, everyone, these people are going to read it, and Douglas is going to read it, and it's terrifying. But I actually feel like I want you to read it, and I want you to tell me what you think.
Yeah, you're going to give us a gift. Thank you, Phillippa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. Are there any other questions? Okay, maybe I should also just take this time. So some of these poems got me thinking, and I was writing notes because I'm very forgetful. But there's the line, a Palestine of colors. For some reason, my brain went to palimpsest. I thought somehow Palestine and palimpsest kind of sort of worked in my brain, but that's just a comment. In your long poem, the dead must make way for the living. I like that will sit with me for a while. Soaked, the ache, just that partial thing would also sit with me. And the comparison between Matric Rage and Lord of the Flies, I didn't know what to make of that. I was like, is it Matric Rage by Jeff Gardini? Is it Matric Rage, the Rage? I didn't know what to make of that. And it's sort of, as you were reading, I was still sitting on, what do I make of this?
I'm sorry. I just couldn't. Like, I mean, the whole idea of matric rage gives me complete. It's like revolting to me. I would hate to be. If I were 18, I would be terrified. If I was expected to go and get drunk for a week, you know.
Okay, that clears it up because my brain immediately went to Jenna Gardini's collection. And then only later did my brain go, okay, no, it's not the poetry collection, it's the rage.
Oh no, 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 no. Gosh. Wow. Matric rage. That's true. Wow. I wish I could claim that, but I can't. I meant the actual matric rage, not Jenna's collection.
Okay, and then lastly, sit hunched over a voice. That line will also sit with me. And I just wanted to let you know I really was into it. And Cindy, the floor is yours because I will ramble.
Thanks, Nandra. Hi, Phillippa. Hi, hi.
Hello.
I just wanted to ask, it was really lovely listening to you read, and I just feel like I haven't heard you read in such a long time. And you have come with all sorts of new work that I've just never heard, some older stuff, but also some new stuff. And so I just wanted to ask, especially now that you've finished this whole journey of the PhD, but even the PhD aside, your voice for me seems to be, I mean, all of our voices change over time, but I was wondering, do you feel your voice has changed over the years in your writing? And with this new work, what are you noticing most in the change? And if you do notice changes in your voice as a writer, what's sort of sticking out most to you in this new journey that you're on?
I suppose I feel less tentative. I feel a little bit. I guess I also have to say that my early influences were a collective of women that included Maisha Jenkins, Makosazana Kaba, Vangile Gansho, Natalia Molobatsi, Lebo Mashile, you know, and so it was very and Napu Mashiani, actually, the caves. And I think that that having sort of, I feel like I was an infant in their care. In their care, I was very, very young, and so now I feel like I've been doing this for about 20 years now, which is really nothing compared to some people like Douglas. Like, how many years, how many poems has he written? How many poems have come out of you? And yeah, no, I think I don't know if there's anything really so much in the voice as much as in the technique. You know, when you get edited by someone like Douglas, you start to think about how something sounds and to see how it lies on the page. When when whoever you work with, or like, you also one of the influences, Cindy, I have to say. Your work, your Loud and Yellow Laughter, has been a constant companion of mine since it came out. And again, it's about care. It's about the care that people take in the language that they use, that sort of holds me back. It kind of strains me. It helps me. It restrains me. It retrains me. You know. So I think that it's really like the technical aspect has been it's been slowed down quite dramatically through all of these other lenses that are coming into the work.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, Francis, please, the floor is yours.
Hi, Phillippa. I just want to say first, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's amazing. I mean, like sitting here and listening to you reading for us poems. I'm telling you, I'm thrilled, man. I'm so excited. Remember, you always my favorite from the time I was still in varsity. So I fell in love with your poetry from that time. So yeah, me sitting here and listening to you is just amazing, amazing. I've met you a couple of times at in Cape Town at poetry sorry, at the book festival. So yeah, every time when I hear that you are going to present your poem, I'm gonna I make sure that I'm gonna be there. So yeah, I was hoping that you were going to read one of my favorite poems, which is Taller Than the Building. But yeah, these were just nice poems that you just read for us. So the question for me is that when are you releasing your next poetry collection? Like maybe I didn't hear that. I didn't pay attention when you said it, but please, um, just want to know when is your next poetry collection being going to be released? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francis. Thank you very much. I like when I don't know if this thing is at all publishable, but maybe next year.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Can't wait.
Thank you.
All right, can you please give Phillippa one last round of applause and take our 5 minutes so that we can have the open mic. So if you could unmute and
Hey, thank you, thank you, thank you.
okay, so we're gonna take 5 minutes and then we're gonna come back. So now it's 20:39. So at 20:44, we'll be back. So you can go take a sip of something and come back. Cool.
Potatoes, not a meeting potatoes. What do they call it? Parents conference. We discussed
My baby don't care for the show. My baby don't care for clothes. My baby just cares for me. My baby don't care for cars and races. My baby don't care for I don't care. This here is not high. And even Lana Turner smile. Something he can't see. My baby don't care. My baby just care.